Good morning, guests and viewers. We are pleased to welcome you all to the launch of this International City County Management Association student chapter with the theme Responsive Public Governance, Sound Policy Making Towards Rebuilding and Recovery. We proudly announce that this is a collaborative undertaking between the Graduate School of Public and Development Management of the Development Academy of the Philippines and the International City County Management Association. The academic membership signifies a remarkable step for the DAP-GSPDM in fulfilling its mission locally and internationally. Likewise, centered on the theme, this launch will focus on the context of good governance and how policies are crafted to effectively respond to diverse and disruptive challenges of our time with rebuilding and recovery at the hindsight. I am Celine Abella, your host for today's online event. First, allow me to acknowledge the presence of the President and Chief Executive Officer of the
Okay, while Celine is acknowledging our key officials, likewise our is acknowledging our key officials, likewise our guests. I think I'll be the next one to give my welcome remarks. I begin with the premise that we at the Graduate School of Public and Development Management just don't impart to our lifelong learners the praxis of public administration and management, but also the societal purpose of the graduate degree program. To our distinguished guest, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, who is very kind to say yes to our invitation, be it face-to-face or online. And of course, to our President and CEO, Attorney Engelbert C. Caranan Jr. for the support he has given to all these online activities of ours. Dr. Jay Gonzalez, who is very kind as well to have this collaboration and linkage amidst our distance. He is from San Francisco and we are in the Philippines, but no matter what, we can connect seamlessly. To our faculty members and advisor, we have with us Dr. Lloyd Bautista, Dr. Malu Rabolida, Dr. Lily Domingo, former DAP President, Mr. Tony Calao, Mr. Mark Limuel Garcia, and of course, the President of ICMA Philippine Chapter, Assistant Professor Mitchville Rivera from Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Valenzuela. My dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. I would like to welcome you all to this launch of the International City County Management Association Student Chapter at the Development Academy of the Philippines Graduate School of Public and Development Management. Foremost, I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Jay Gonzalez for facilitating not only the recognition of DAP-GSPDM's ICMA Student Chapter, but DAP now, Graduate School of Public and Development, is the mothership or the flagship or the coordinating hub for all ICMA Philippine student chapters, which was approved by ICMA headquarters in Washington, D.C. Truly, it's an honor for us, Dr. J. And later on, I will acknowledge these universities with ICMA student chapter. With this help, of course, from Dr. J, and despite the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and the distance between the Philippines and San Francisco, California, we are able to launch this student chapter of such a prestigious and world-renowned association. Founded in 1914, the International City County Management Association advances professional local government through leadership, management, innovation, and ethics. ICMA also has a global influence with their reach extending to municipalities throughout the world, as well as cities and counties in the United States. So this is really remarkable. The knowledge they can impart to us is very valuable, and we are honored to be their partner in advancing good governance in the Philippines. And this is really part of our advocacy, that we want our lifelong learners to realize the importance of their societal role. We equip them the leadership skills that fosters phronesis or goodness in tackling societal challenges of today and of the future. And this is really about our intergenerational responsibility. We want a city, a municipality, a community, a society that nurtures a sustainable and regenerative system by embedding culture, values, ethics, and nature. We want to live in a green environment where we can communicate with nature, a safe public place or park where we can play, sing, and dance to revive our culture. A pedestrian where we can freely walk without fear of being hit by vehicles. This may be sound ideal, very ideal, but this is a narrative of our preferred future. And this is really about our intergenerational responsibility. We care for the future generation, and it is high time, and it makes sense that we have to have a sustainable community. This morning, we are indeed very fortunate to be recognized by the association, and we are looking forward to the future collaboration with ICMA towards a sustainable and regenerative communities together with Philippine ICMA student chapters from the universities in the country, which include the University of the Philippines NCPAG, De La Salle University, Ateneo de Manila University, Batangas State University, Palawan State University, Mindanao State University General Santos, Ateneo de Zamboanga University, University of the Philippines Visayas, Holy Name University in Tagbiliran, University of Science and Technology Southern Philippines, and Bicol University. Banking on our robust partnerships with higher education institutions, both public and private, I am sure that the Graduate School of Public and Development Management of the Development Academy of the Philippines will be able to fulfill this goal. Also, I would like to take this opportunity to recognize Assistant Professor Mitchville Rivera for being the chapter president of ICMA Student Chapter of DAP-GSPDM. Professor Mitch is one of our star students in our certificate and executive courses, and I am very proud of him for taking on this call to leadership without second thoughts. With Professor Mitch at the helm, along with the mentors of the student chapter, Dr. Jay Gonzalez, Dr. Loy Bautista, and myself as a faculty advisor, I am excited to see what projects and activities the student chapter will launch soon. So I invite our students and alumni to register as members of the GSPDM ICMA student chapter. Again, welcome, and I wish everyone a productive day ahead. Hiraya manawari po sa ating lahat. Back to you, Celine.
Thank you, Dr. Lizan. At this point, it is my honor to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Senator Sherwin T. Gatchalian is no neophyte to public service with his almost 2 decades of experience serving in the public arena. During his term in Congress, he became one of the foremost advocates of genuine education reform as he authored notable and relevant bills, including the Free Higher Education Act, the measure on increasing salaries for teachers and non-teaching personnel, the nationwide school-based feeding program for kinder and elementary public students, the Nanay Teacher Parenting Program, and the Anti-Hazing Act, among others. Senator Win Gatchalian moved to the national stage during the May 2016 elections, and only a year into his term, the Senate approved the Affordable Higher Education for All Act, a landmark legislation that would make education within reach of deserving but underprivileged students. Enacted into law as the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Act, this has set the stage for millions of young Filipinos to attain a free college education in the coming years. Indeed, his distinct brand of leadership has earned him countless accolades. Senator of the Philippines and current chairman of the Senate Committee on Basic Education, Arts, and Culture, let us all welcome Senator Sherwin T. Gatchalian.
Can you hear me? Dr.
Yes,
Lizan,
Senator.
can you hear me?
Yes, Senator, we can hear you.
Right. Good morning, everyone. And thank you very much for inviting me to this very important event. Important because in the midst of the pandemic, I always advocated that local governments are in the forefront in the fight against COVID. And before I continue and elaborate on that, let me greet our dignitaries and also our officials for this morning. Let me greet Dr. Joaquin Gonzalez, one of our resource persons. Let me also greet Dr. Lizan Perante Calina. Doc, good morning. Good to see you again. Let me also greet Attorney Earl Engelbert Coronan, the president of the Development Academy of the Philippines. Let me also greet Professor Napaleto, Professor Mitchville Rivera. And I think Dr. Lizan earlier mentioned that you're one of the most sought after and most qualified professor in DAP. Let me also greet all the reactors, and let me also greet all the members of the academe, faculty, of course, our students and members of the different state universities. Again, thank you very much for inviting me. And this event is really timely because ICMA, or the International City County Management Association, is an organization that supports local governments and empowers and enriches the knowledge of local governments. And from the beginning, when this pandemic struck our country, I always view that the local government, it's not the national government, but it's the local governments that need to lead in the fight against COVID. This fight cannot be won from the top, but it should be won from street to street, from house to house, from city to city. And in that forefront, of course, are the local government officials, from barangay captains, from mayors, all the way to governors. But then again, how do you make sure that these local governments are qualified and are responding to the needs of this crisis? More so, I think the bigger question is, can you actually develop good mayors, good barangay captains, and good governors? Are they born to lead local governments, or can institutions like DAP create good mayors, good barangay captains, and good governors? I have to repeat barangay captains because let us not diminish the role of the barangay captain, especially in the implementation of ECQs. And I would like to harp on that because when you say local governments, you always have mayors and governors in mind. But in this ECQ, I realized that the barangay captains equally play a very important role, and we need to develop their skills, their local government capabilities. So, having said that, the bigger question is: Are these local officials born to lead, or can we train them? Can we impart knowledge on them? Can we put them to school and voila, have very good local government officials? I think it's a combination of both knowledge and both experience, and also both case studies. I say this because knowledge also has limitations, but we also need to open their minds to best practices, open their minds to different case studies that is present around the world. We can only teach so much, but innovation is happening around the world, and we need to make sure that that innovation cascades all the way down and being appreciated by our local government officials here in the Philippines. So having said that, I have a very brief presentation on local governments and what we have learned so far here in Valenzuela in light of the pandemic. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Okay. And one of my favorite quotes during this time of pandemic is from Winston Churchill. Never let a good crisis go to waste. And this is very important for local government practitioners as well as people who are who have opened their minds in learning in the light of the pandemic. There's so much to learn in the light of pandemic, and that's one of the most important responsibilities of any local government officials is to learn from this pandemic, because this type of crisis I hope, will not come back in the next few years. But if it does, the wealth of knowledge that we have gained from this pandemic on how we responded, how we took care of our constituents is something that will be needed in generations to come. So just to give you a small or a brief backgrounder on where we are, you probably have seen this on Twitter. I follow this guy, his name is Edson Guido. He works for ABS-CBN as a data analyst, and basically every day he would tweet his analysis, and he's one of the few people that I follow regularly on Twitter, and we can see that cases in our country is really spiking, you know, and we have hit that all-time record about 2 days ago, about 6,000 cases registered in our country. Oops, what do you? Okay. And for me, I always look at the active cases, because just to paint the picture correctly, I always look at the active cases, and even the active cases is already spiking in the last few days. There was a big dip in the active cases because of the change in our recovery protocols. I'm sure you've seen that on TV. But even though we adjust that for correction, we can still see that active cases in our country is spiking. You know, initially deaths and reported cases have decoupled in our country, and that's a good thing, meaning even though cases are rising, deaths are not rising. But in the past few days, about a week, we can also see that deaths are slowly climbing. And this is a scary portion, because as the number of cases go up, deaths are also go up. So all of these things are important from a governance standpoint, and always advocated that data gathering and data analysis, even at the local government's level, is very important. This is how you respond. If you don't have information and data, it's very difficult to craft the appropriate policy and respond at the local government level. In the same manner, because cases are going up, our bed capacity is being taken up. If you see the blue and the green line, these are the bed capacities in NCR and Region 4, ICU bed capacities, and we have reached the danger zone. That's why a lot of our medical practitioners have sounded the alarm bells and requested to go back to a much stricter modified ECQ because of this reason. Our ICU bed capacity and the other COVID capacity, bed capacity is already taken up. But are we losing the battle? I think this is a question that our medical practitioners have posted, and for me, we're trying our best to survive until a vaccine comes out. And the rest of the world is trying their best to survive until the vaccine comes out. We are seeing a lot of second waves and a lot of resurgence in different parts of the world, in Europe, in South America, in Asia. And that's why this virus is not only new, but it's also responding in a very um, unconventional way. That's why even advanced nations have unlimited resources and virtually unlimited access to technology, is also experiencing what we are experiencing. So again, and I want to emphasize on this, that the fight against COVID-19 should be by house to house, street to street, barangay by barangay, city by city. The LGU should be capacitated and empowered to defeat the virus at the local level. It cannot be defeated at the national level, but it should be defeated at the local level, being led by local government officials. And fortunately for us, IATF recognized this. If you remember, during January and February, IATF was concentrated at the top. No? All of our testing capacities were centralized at IRTM. But by April, they realized that the local governments are the key to curb the spread of this virus. That's why they changed policies, and IATF now empowered the LGUs. There's still a lot of things to be done, but at least from a policy standpoint, the LGUs now are leading that fight. So these are the things that we learned here in Valenzuela. You know, even though I'm a senator in our system, a senator is a national figure. I spent a lot of time, almost 2 months, in our command center in Valenzuela to learn this virus and how to respond to this virus. Again, this virus is very new. This magnitude of a crisis is also very new. And it's an opportunity for local government practitioners and everyone, particularly, especially in government, to learn about this virus, about this pandemic, and how we should respond. So this is what we endeavored and still endeavoring over the past few months. First of all, we studied the pandemic, and this crisis is an opportunity to learn. And what we found out after almost 4 or 5 months of studying this is we cannot stop the spread of this virus. It's scary to say this, believe me, but it's difficult to stop the spread of the virus. We can only delay it until the vaccine comes out. And the new normal is to learn how to live with the virus, practicing the most basics, wearing a mask, social distancing, avoiding crowded places. This is the new normal until we find a cure or a vaccine to stop and kill the virus permanently. And again, data collection and analysis is very important, even at the local level. You only have efficient response if you have complete data and analyze the data. And then we also learned that you have to prepare for eventuality, putting up test centers, setting up your local contact tracing capabilities, putting up isolation centers. Here in Valenzuela, Mitchville knows this, that our isolation centers cater to the rich and poor. And we're very strict with that. Not because you have a mansion house here in Valenzuela, you can isolate yourself. If you're positive, regardless if you have the biggest house in the city, we'll put you in an isolation center so that we know your movement and we can monitor your movement. And we expanded our hospital capability as well as hospital capacities here. And again, the barangays in this quarantine operation, or this community quarantine operation, the barangays play a very important role. So we cannot marginalize their responsibility. In the talk about local government improvement, the barangay is a very important component. We also learn to communicate with our constituents, especially now. They have to understand and appreciate this pandemic. They will only learn why to wear masks if they will appreciate the gravity of this pandemic and how it can affect their families. Again, we use social media. People learn how to use social media, and we cannot underestimate the power of social media, especially under the pandemic. And of course, in any local government responsibility, nothing beats the good old visibility and presence. But this has a caveat: be careful. You go out and make sure that you analyze the places that you go to. But in this time of confusion and time of crisis, our constituents are looking for leadership. And the best way to demonstrate leadership is visibility and presence. So it's important for local government officials to be visible and to go out there. Whether when I say visibility, this is not, I don't mean limit yourself to just social media, but physical presence is very important at this time. And some of the concepts that I think we should embed as the new normal. And there are a lot of concepts, but I want to narrow down in three major aspects in terms of public health. Testing center should be a norm now, even at the city level, where the city should have their own capability, should test their own constituents. I think our government made a very big mistake by centralizing testing capabilities in government hospitals. Earlier on, I texted the testing czar, Mr. Vince Hizon, and recommended to him that we should put testing centers all over the cities so that the city mayors will not overburden national government when it comes to testing. And again, testing is such an important weapon to fight COVID. And then contact tracing should be technology driven. I don't believe in hiring chismosas and chismoso to conduct contact tracing. I think that's I don't know who developed that idea, but technology is very important because we're running against time and the virus is faster than the human beings. So it's important to have technology so that we can outrun the spread of the virus. And the isolation center should be a norm also moving forward. We should develop multi-use isolation centers. So in case that you don't have pandemics, you can use it for something else. Then social services. Basically, we had problems in giving out cash assistance to our constituents. The country aimed to give out 18 million social amelioration cash assistance to our constituents, but giving 18 million, giving 100 billion to 18 million people is no easy feat, especially if you don't have technology by your side. So moving forward, it's important to have a national ID system, a community monitoring system, and moving forward, I'm thinking of a law that will mandate bank accounts so that a cashless system can be implemented during emergency situations. If we can give our constituents cash immediately through electronic means, that means they should have some form of bank account so that government can remit directly to them instead of going through physical channels to give them the cash. Education at this time is also under a lot of stress. That's why moving forward, we should have a learning continuity plan crafted every year, take into account the different disasters and the different crises that we have encountered from volcano eruption, from pandemics to earthquakes. A learning continuity plan that is built on experience should be crafted every year so that we can respond right away. Blended learning should be a norm. And when I say blended learning, the use of internet and the use of online learning should be a norm already. Of course, this is aspirational because a lot of our constituents don't have access to internet, but it should be an aspiration that we should strive for. From what we have experienced right now, we want to implement distance learning, but as we all know, we have problems with technology. We have areas that don't have access to the internet. We have constituents that don't have access to gadgets. In fact, only less than 60% of our constituents have some form of smartphone or access to gadgets, and only 40% of our constituents have some access to strong internet. So moving forward, we have to embed that in our learning. So implementing blended learning as a norm will force government to improve access to internet and to improve access to gadgets such as smartphone and tablets. So just to give everyone an idea of what we are doing here in Valenzuela. Um, like I said, the local government should be in the forefront against fight against COVID, and this is what we have done over the past few months. We were the first to undertake a localized targeted mass testing by partnering with some prominent laboratories. At that time, there was only one government laboratory that you can go to if you want testing. But what we did is we tapped private laboratories and private hospitals to undertake our own local testing, and we were ahead of all local governments do that. We have now a capability of about 265 TOPS tests a day for our constituents. And we have started testing second round already, our frontliners, from medical frontliners to our barangay officials. And I want to, again, put emphasis on the unrecognized frontliners. The barangay and the local government frontliners are also equally in danger of getting infected because they're exposed to the barangays and they're exposed on the streets. And the ECQ will not be effective if we don't have the cooperation and the mobilization of the barangays. So as a confidence builder to our barangays, we constantly test our barangays. And we also tested our medical frontliners here in Valenzuela. By August 15, we'll be operating our own local laboratory. We have two machines. This is the Abbott Architect, which can check and determine both IgG and IgM. As you all know, the IgG is the antibody that tells you that you have already gotten well from COVID. IgM, it's the antibody that basically is saying that you have COVID right now. Some of the technology or serology tests out there only test IgM, but IgG. But this machine can test both. So we can now detect if you are presently infected with COVID. And we also have the PCR machine, and the PCR machine will work hand in hand with the serology machine by Abbott. This is the gold standard. So immediately we can tell if you have COVID or not. And like I said, we have our own isolation center. This is supposed to be our drug rehabilitation and treatment center, but we temporarily used it as our isolation center. But then again, we realized that we should have multi-use isolation centers. Isolation centers that we can use for something else. For example, drug rehab, or even seminars, or even living facilities. And then when this type of pandemic strikes, we have a facility that we can convert immediately overnight into an isolation center. These are some of the patients that we brought to our isolation centers. And then we also have our local social amelioration response. And in Valenzuela, we put a lot of emphasis and importance to food on the table for your family. So we released close to 220,000 food vouchers. We still have places like this. Even though Valenzuela is a highly urbanized city, but in our borders, we will have very poor, marginalized communities like this. And we would go out proactively and reach out to them and make sure that they have food on the table. The distribution is very organized. We don't just let them go to our redemption centers all at once. There's a systematic way of the infection. And this is basically the contents of our food packs that is good for 2 weeks for a family of 5. And this is a very important component of our transition to the new normal. And this is what we call the Pass Permit. Mitch knows about this. We launched this early part of this year, fortunately. And our goal basically is in the future, this is Pass Permit's objective in the midterm and even in the long term, is no one will come to City Hall anymore for your permits. everything will be done online. And we started with our business permits, with our business permits, as well as with our engineering permits. So basically, you can get your business permits in 10 seconds, and make no mistake, in 10 seconds, you apply, you pay, you get your permit all through email. So as you know, right now, I'm sure all of you have bought something from Amazon, from Lazada or Shopee. I'm a very big fan of Shopee. And you can virtually buy and pay in less than 10 seconds, especially if you have a credit card. So if you can do it through Shopee, why not do it through local government? And that's what we did. No? Basically, if you don't have any arrears and you are in taxpayer in good standing, we will, and you have a credit card, you can get your business permit in 10 seconds by using this permit. And we will expand this for all services in Valenzuela. So we were fortunate that we launched this this January, and now our taxpayers don't have to come to City Hall to get their business permit. You can get your business permit renewed in 10 seconds. You can apply for a business permit in 10 seconds and pay online. You will get your physical permit by courier. We have a partner with Grab, so they will deliver your physical permit, but we will email you your provisional electronic permit, so you can already go and do business already, especially at this time of pandemic. So again, we have, let me just emphasize that the local governments is at the forefront in the fight against COVID. And I really thank ICMA for spearheading this partnership with DAP, because we need to empower, enlighten, and increase the capability of our local governments. And the local governments should not be limited to just very theoretical teaching in universities or in colleges, but we should also open their minds to innovation and best practices. I was a mayor for 9 years, and a lot of my concept here is basically I copied in Marikina. I'm not shy in copying. I am very good in copying, in fact. And that's how we learn as local governments. We learn from each other. We pick up the good points. We throw out the bad points, but we also learn from the bad points. And if we can mix the theoretical points and also with good practices, with bad practices, that will make the local government complete and more knowledgeable in their work. So once again, thank you very much to ICMA. Thank you very much to DAP. Thank you very much to Mitchville for arranging this event and inviting me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Gatchalian, for your very insightful keynote speech. It is an honor to have you in today's lunch. The first time that we had you for a knowledge sharing event was during our face-to-face Decalogo on the state of education in the Philippines last February. Thank you very much for your support to GSPDM and DAP as a whole.
Thank you, Senator Win.
Now, we proceed to our public governance lecture. Our speaker is actually part and parcel of making the establishment of ICMA student chapter in DAP-GSPDM possible. So without further ado, may I introduce him. Dr. Joaquin Gonzalez III is Mayor George Christopher Professor of Public Administration and Chair of the Department of Public Administration and Executive MPA Program at the Golden Gate University, San Francisco, California. He was also a Governance and Urban Development Advisor of the USAID Strengthening Urban Resilience for Growth and Equity in the Philippines and Enabling Growth through Investment and Enterprise Program in Tanzania. Dr. Gonzalez has previously held teaching appointments at the National University of Singapore, University of San Francisco State University, and the U.S. Naval Postgraduate School. He has also worked as a public servant in the United States of America as Commissioner of Immigrant Rights for the City and County of San Francisco. Author of 20 books on public and urban affairs, a 4-time teaching excellence and 5-time research excellence awardee, and a sought-after training lecturer, and advisor, it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Joaquin Gonzalez III.
Hi, maraming salamat. Can you hear me? Good, you can hear
Very
me?
well.
Yes, Dr.
All
J,
right,
we
thank
can
you
hear
so
you.
much. Maraming salamat, for everybody's attendance today. Senator Gatchalian, I'm so honored to hear, your talk. You will find that some of the things that I'll be saying actually will be reinforcing many of the things that you, eloquently shared with us today. So our talks are really going to be complementing each other. Attorney Caronan, thank you so much for the invitation again. I'm always looking for opportunities to give back. I've been away from the Philippines for the last 30 years, and I'm very, very hungry for any opportunity to give back to country. And that goes to Dean Lizan, who worked together with DAP President Caronan to bring me and give this public lecture. To my good friend Tony Calao, former DAP President, thank you, sir. You started my journey with DAP, and here I am, back again. Gabby Moraledo, another DAPer, and also the Executive Director of the Filipino Senior Resource Center here in San Francisco, also with us. My ICMA colleagues, Rebecca DeSantis, who is in charge of all ICMA chapters globally, and the Director of Global Programs, Isabel Omictin. Thank you for being here. Prof. Mitch, you stood up. Leadership is there, but if nobody grabs it, then it's just going to be there. So thank you for standing and grabbing the leadership. Pulse Asia President, Ronnie Holmes, thanks for being here with me, longtime colleague at De La Salle University. Dr. Weng Dano, faculty advisor of ICMA chapter at the University of Science Technology, Southern Philippines in Cagayan de Oro. Thanks for being here. I see that we have UPNCPAG's chapter, co-chapter presidents, Arby Modino and Alder Deloro. Thank you so much. Distinguished guests and mga minamahal kong kababayan. During my talk today, please allow me to speak in Filipino. Alam nyo, gutom na akong magsalita ng Filipino. 30 years na ako nagre-lecture ng English. So today, I'm hoping that I'm able to use my Filipino. As a Filipino-American, I'm really very humbled by the Development Academy of the Philippines invitation to share my thoughts and experience on this very important concern to both my adopted American homeland and my motherland, the Philippines. As you know, the United States has the highest number of cases and the highest number of deaths in the world. When Senator Gatchalian was showing case in the Philippines, we hope, that those were the cases we have, but that's not the case here in the United States. To date, we have nearly 1 million confirmed cases in the United States and more than 150,000 deaths and counting. Our growing number of cases is the equivalent of the populations of Metro Cebu and Metro Davao combined. So you could just imagine that scale that we have here. Can you change the slides, please? Many here in the United States are, of course, stumped. How could the wealthiest and supposedly the best healthcare system in the world be so helpless? As early as October 2019, Johns Hopkins University's Bloomberg School of Public Health's Global Health Security Index ranked the United States of America #1 in 5 out of 6 categories in terms of pandemic preparedness. #1 in terms of prevention of the emergence of the release of pathogens. Number one in the early detection and reporting for epidemics of potential international concern. Number one in rapid response to and mitigation of the spread of epidemics. Number one in sufficient and robust healthcare system to treat the sick and protect healthcare workers. Number one in commitments to improving national capacity and financing plans to address gaps in adhering to global norms and practices. These factors earned America, per Johns Hopkins Index, the number one overall global health security ranking, going into the start of this COVID-19 pandemic battle. Comparatively, the Philippines was ranked 53rd out of 80 countries. So what happened to the United States? Why kamahal ng aming healthcare system dito? To get tested is about $2,000. It is very expensive. So what happened? The only factor where the United States did not get a number one ranking is the sixth factor. This is the overall risk environment and the country's vulnerability to biological threats. Indicators in this category assess the US political risks, socioeconomic resilience, the infrastructure adequacy, environmental risk, public health vulnerabilities that may affect the ability of the country to prevent or detect or respond to an epidemic, and increase the likelihood that this outbreak will spill across national borders. America rated a dismal 19th. ASEAN member Singapore ranked even ahead of the United States in this last category. This number six factor, and the hidden defects that Hopkins did not see, was not able to add into its metrics for categories 1 to 5, became America's undoing. I love boxing. I coach boxing at the university. I've coached 3 national champions. So I like to think of things in boxing analogies. To use a boxing analogy, this combination of factors, or in public health terms, comorbidities, unleashed by this unranked contender, AKA the flashy COVID-19, was enough to knock out the cocky America. So given the situation, and Senator Gatchalian already laid out the Philippine situation, and I've laid out the US situation, how do we come up with responsive public governance? Because that's the topic that the DAP gave me today. Responsive public governance, sound policy making towards rebuilding, recovery, and I added resilience. How could we, as Senator Gatchalian said, learn from what we're experiencing right now and come up with something better, something more resilient? I have 3 things that came into mind while I was thinking about this talk and about the experience we've had. Can you change slide, please, CJ? So the first is what I call a whole of governance, not just whole of government. I've heard the 2 presidents from across the Pacific, and they've of course, in many of their speeches, talked about a whole of government. Now, Senator Gatchalian underscored what is very important, which is the inclusion of people on the ground, including people all the way to the barangay level. So it's not just about whole of government. We're talking about whole of governance, the private sector, civil society, NGOs. What is their role? So the first thing we need is a whole of governance commitment. It is critical for the president to launch a wholehearted whole of governance and not just a whole of government approach. Commitment or buy-in from whole of governance is equals to a whole of government plus a whole of society approach. In my last DAP panel, I was with one of my people power revolution idols, Senator Nene Pimentel, the late Senator Pimentel. He and former DAP President Tony Calao asked me to share my experiences on American federalism. In my talk, I underscored that even though our cities, US cities and states, US states, are quite independent from the national government under our federal system, I reminded Tony and Senator Pimentel that American citizens in our cities, Senator Gatchalian, the LGUs, yes, and the private sector, they still look towards national leadership. For us, the White House, for really heartfelt whole of governance, vision, unity, and commitment. Vision, unity, and commitment. Thus, in the early months of COVID-19, we had this. We had a glimpse of this in the United States. The whole of American civil society joined forces with a whole of government to flatten the curve. Next slide, please, CJ. Flattening the curve, next slide, please, CJ, sorry. Brought together this commitment. It was a glimpse where, I saw American society give up their liberal individualism and said, we are going to abide by the stay-at-home order. We're going to stay at home because we believe our commitment should be helping in flattening this curve. Napakahirap pong gawin yan. 300 million Americans. Kung sa tingin nyo matigas ang ulo ng Pilipino, 10 times ang tigas ng ulo po ng mga fellow Americans ko dito. Napaka-kontrador. And that is why we come up with such revolutionary, ideas. Because we like to think outside the box. We like to push the envelope. So it is that same, American individualism and innovativeness sometimes that becomes our undoing. Now, with this resurgence of cases, now more than ever, we again need to join forces. Now, more than ever, a whole of governance to commit to a national plan. We don't even have a national plan here. To build, to recover, and to be more resilient is needed. Our policymakers in the Philippines gearing for a commitment to a similar long-term plans. Is there a sound plan that's thinking long-term, or are we just reacting to what we are facing right now? Next slide, please. The second thought about this whole of governance that I'd like to point out is what I call whole of governance messaging. And commitment and messaging are two different things. They go together. You can commit, but if it's not broadcasted and shared with everybody, and especially in this era of Twitter, in this era of Facebook, in this era of LinkedIn, in this era of Viber, WhatsApp, email, messaging is very, very important. So this whole of governance messaging is my second, aspect thought that I wanted to share. Messaging is key to responsive public governance. Clear messaging drives outreach, drives branding, drives advertising. A whole of governance commitment must be messaged from the top, from the president. A presidential soundbite is needed, right? Definitely not make America great again. Wrong message. Why? This message is associated with division, political division. It is not the right messaging. Partisan interpretations create mixed messaging. Mixed messaging is also dangerous, right? There's fake news and there's mixed messaging, right? Which only hinders sound policy making when you have mixed messaging. America's confirmed cases and deaths continued to rise because our president and his task force advisors, right? Tony Fauci, Deborah Birx, career scientists, we're sending mixed messages along with our president about wearing protective masks. The president said, no, it's not needed. Look at me, I don't need it. While Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx were saying, we need it. If we really, want to continue flattening the curve, right? If you want to reduce number of cases, you need to wear it. They also differed in testing. The president who's running for November is of course thinking, the more testing is done, the more there will be cases. And that will be what people will remember me going into the polls. So this is a political situation for him. And so he had to message against what his advisors were saying. Now that the president has had some sense knocked into him, he must think that win or lose in November, he should place the interests of the American people first. I'm hoping that he would align his policies with my city's non-political message. I got you covered. That's our message here in San Francisco. I protect you, you protect me. My neighbor, I got you covered. I'm wearing my mask for you. I'm not wearing this mask for me. I'm wearing it for you. You wear your mask, not for you, but also for our community, our neighborhood, for all of us, right? I got you covered, right? Is our sound bite here. That is our messaging from our mayor all the way down to the people on the street. That is the message we have. This message prepares America. It's a long-term message. Like Senator Gatchalian said, these lessons you carry forward because COVID-20 is coming. COVID-21 is coming. COVID-22 is coming. And more. These kinds of messaging should continue, should be embedded in our minds, right, for the long term. Do Philippine policymakers have clear and consistent messaging about a way forward? This is very important for responsive public governance. Change slide, please. Kita nyo, ang messaging namin, nakatagalog din. Because here in the San Francisco Bay Area, we have 600,000 Filipinos. And so we want the message to sink in. Pagtatakip ko para sa kaligtasan mo. Ligtas ako, ligtas ka, kapwa ligtas tayo. This is the message of the City and County of San Francisco in Filipino to all of our San Francisco Bay Area brothers and sisters, so that it sinks in, not just in the mind, but in the Filipinos' heart, that this is being done for all of us. Change slide, please. The third and last one that I'm going to talk to you about is a whole of governance action. And after locking in commitment and messaging, collaborative whole of governance action is a must for responsive public governance to succeed. It is not easy. It is messy. It is painful. On a request to serve my new country from our mayor, I accepted this gargantuan challenge of being immigration commissioner for the city of San Francisco right after September 11, 2001. This is the biggest headache anybody will be assuming. I prayed hard. I took the appointment. My commission is the guardian of the city's sanctuary policy and action plan. My fearless fellow commissioners and I worked hard to build community consensus on protecting the human rights of immigrants, both legal and the unauthorized. So dito sa amin, mahirap to. Legal o illegal ka man, babantayan ka namin at poprotektahan ka namin dito sa City of San Francisco. Bibigyan ka namin ng ID. Bibigyan ka namin ng language translation. Libre ang pagpaaral sa'yo. Libre ang healthcare pag San Francisco resident ka. So our rebuilding efforts in recovery led to many actions that we see today, and we rose from the ashes of 9/11, became more tolerant. We became a more compassionate city and a resilient city because of these whole of governance actions. Sama-sama, NGO, gobyerno, and everybody. Now, to reduce the spike of COVID-19 cases we are experiencing, we needed another whole of governance action from every San Franciscan. And this is ang tawag namin, bahay muna, buhay muna, right? This is our initiative here in the county of San Francisco. This is part of our messaging. This is part of our commitment. This is part of what we are doing. This is our action. Change slide, please. To recap, what is essential for public governments? Can you click on the three, CJ? Yes. So to recap, what is essential for responsive public governance? Well, you have whole of governance commitment, whole of governance messaging, and whole of governance action. This is my respectful and humble advice to you in my Philippines, and of course, my America. If you want to rebuild, if you want to recover, if you want to be resilient, you have to learn to use these three. Once again, I would like to thank DAP, Senator, for your message, President Caronan and Dean for inviting me. I would like to thank you everybody for listening. Mabuhay po kayo, and God bless. I got you covered.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez, for generously sharing your knowledge with us. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Dr.
You're
J.
welcome. You're welcome.
At this point, we encourage everyone to type in their comments on the presentation in the Zoom chat box. Once again, we encourage everyone to type in the Zoom chat box their comments. We will now listen to the reactions from our panel of reactors. Our reactors are two of the highly esteemed senior fellows of DAP-GSPDM, Dr. Maria Lourdes Berbolida and Dr. Teodoro Loidon Bautista, both of whom are experts in public administration and governance. The order will be Dr. Berbolida first, followed by Dr. Bautista. Each reactor will be given 5 minutes to speak. To moderate the open forum, I would like to call on again Dr. Lizanne E. Perante Calina.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, so let's start with Dr. Malu Rebolida. Mamalu, are you there? Okay, kindly unmute your microphone, Mamalu. We cannot hear you well.
Yes, there. Okay, thank you to our learning team. Magandang umaga po kay Dr. J. Gonzalez. Magandang umaga kay Senator Sherwin Gatchalian and our officials sa bago nating Philippine Hub for our ICMA. Also, salamat din kay Dr. Lisan and all of DAP and everyone else. Good morning. So salamat po sa napakalalim na paglalahad ng mga bagay-bagay na dapat nating maunawaan tungkol sa ating governance. Hinahanap ko lang kung ano kaya ang Filipino o Filipino word natin para sa governance, no? Maliban na lang sa ginagawa nating pagbigkas nito at pagsulat nito ng wikang Ingles, pinapasok na natin sa ating lengguwahe. Pero maganda yung ginawa nila Dr. Gonzales na stay at home, bahay muna, buhay, and yung translation ng protect. So magandang challenge yung hanapin natin yung salitang governance sa ating wika. Putting together the presentations, ang dami kong natutunan, and yung tatlong, yung resilience, recovery, rebuilding, na talagang hindi natin dapat kalimutan dahil pangamba natin hindi lang COVID-19, 2021, and other kinds of challenges from disasters and other things that can come unexpectedly. So unang-una ko pong nakita sa kanilang paglalahad yung tinatawag kong inclusive local governance, na yung inclusive nga pangkahalatan siguro na dapat bumababa siya hanggang doon sa ating barangay captain. And I'd like to thank Senator Gatchalian for pointing that out. And in the case of Dr. Gonzales, even the community and the civil society, yung mga organisasyon sa pamayanan ay nagsasama-sama. So talagang sa local governance, inclusive siya sa pinaka-grassroots ng pamahalaan, pati hanggang sa pinaka-grassroots ng civil society. So most often, yung mga civil society, mga association, they operate at the national level. Pero ngayon, kailangan talaga na pati sa mga local government units, this will be activated. So talagang whole of governance and inclusive governance, as was pointed out by both our speakers. The next point that I observed in the presentation is the importance of leadership. I might be biased or what by saying that mukhang the key driving force is really the leadership. Kasi kung yung mayor, yung barangay captain, yung commissioner, yung advisor ay frenetic ang leadership at talagang empowered yung leadership, all the other things come to play. So in that sense, the intervention of adaptation, innovation, resiliency, and other national plans, long-term plans, local plans can get into the picture and can be put together if leadership is open. So talagang nakikita ko dito yung pati pagpili ng advisor at saka ng staff, no? So here I see na talagang pinag-isipan ni Dr. J. Gonzales kung tatanggapin niya yung posisyon. So I congratulate the person who called on you and who appointed you, because the leadership is also responsible for who you appoint. So kung ano yung staff mo, kung ano yung opisyalis mo, malamang reflection din yon ng pag-iisip ng nakatataas na pinuno. So here we can see the conflict between Dr. Fauci and the President of the United States. Conflict sila, bakit ganon, no? And then we also see here in the Philippines our problem of people appointed by the president who also think by the president in the lines of the president. So pag mali yung thinking nitong frontline leadership natin, parang nakikita natin yung mga isinasagawa ay baluktot din. But I'd like to also highlight the point raised by both speakers that responding to the crisis is a learning process. So both the leaders and the citizens must understand that we are facing something that's new. Bago siya, kaya magkasama ang ating learning process. And I think the learning curve is a little too long and too stretched. Hindi pwedeng mabilisan kasi madaming trial and error. But if the leaders and the communities are open together, yung sinasabi nga ni Dr. J na consensus, yung sinasabi ni Senator Gatchalian na visibility, kung tayo ay magkakasama, whole of governance, we appreciate the trial and error. Now we see the lessons and then immediately we bounce back and then we rethink. Kaya dun kailangan yung resiliency. Resiliency of the leaders and resiliency of the community. So kailangan mabilisan, maagap, at sama-sama. So when the leadership becomes a driving force, nakikita ko na yung pagpasok ng mga ibang binabanggit na mga factors or variables ng ating speakers. Yung technical and logistics na ilalagay. So kung maganda yung ating pananaw, naiisip natin, kailangan ng logistics, kailangan ng technical aspect, kailangan bumili ng equipment. kailangan ng messaging, kailangan ng information and technology. So yung mga policies natin ay nagagawa natin dahil sa mabilisan nating pag-agap. So I think that all of this put together, our biggest lesson here is that we need to rebuild using new ways, the whole of governance approach. We need to recover by innovation, adaptation. And so leadership and consensus is very important. And we need to have resilience. And in the resilience process, kailangan open yung capacity natin for trial and error, for surprises, for immediately backing up and seeing kung mali tayo, back up tayo, and then we go forward. And all of this, I think a very important instrument is a combination of policy and action. So we act and we put this into policy and mandates, and then we put it into enforcement. It's a very big task, napakalawak, but I'd like to highlight the example of San Francisco. Nagbigay po naman sila ng best practice, and then Senator Gatchalian nagbigay ng best practice for Valenzuela. So it's not all talk and it's not all theory, but we can see it's very grounded, they're very immersed. And as we say as academics, the inductive becomes deductive and vice versa. We learn from the practice to bring it to theory, and from theory, we bring it down to practice. So yan po, magandang umaga sa inyo lahat.
Maraming salamat, Dr. Maluno, for emphasizing leadership. At the end of the day, it's really leadership, no? And through leadership, we need to foster goodness, no, in each other so that we can go on amidst difficulties. And also, thank you for bringing in yung Filipino terms, no? And also si Dr. J, no, sinimulan niya kanina. We are starting to do cultural hacking, no? Hacks are creating positive ideas, no? So ginagamit na natin ngayon yung mga Filipino terms like Hiraya Manawari,
yes,
no? And yung Decalogo, even Decalogo in our mga platforms natin ngayon online, ang sabi ko sa team, palitan natin yan, dapat Filipino terms kasi ang daming meaningful talaga, no? Yung mga Filipino terms. So it's high time for us to do cultural hacks or hacking. Okay, so with that, I would like to hear also from Dr. Lloyd Bautista for his comments and reactions. Dr. Lloyd?
Hi, can you hear me?
Very well, Dr. Lloyd.
Okay, so 4 points, just 4 points. I'm happy with the discussion of Dr. Gonzalez and also Senator Gatchalian, and perhaps we can ponder on these 4 points. One is there was a data I came across, the Global Health Index, and surprisingly, the United States was one of the top countries that were resilient and well prepared. And when this pandemic struck the world, United States was not performing as we have expected. The Philippines naman talaga, we are low in terms of global health resiliency preparation. The second point that I want to come across is the concept of whole of governance. This concept is very abstract because we hear it a lot of times, whole of nation, whole of government, whole of governance. Unfortunately, in the country, we haven't really fully operationalized what whole of government or whole of governance is. Perhaps it's really based on culture, considering that we are divided by islands and ethnicity. There's always the challenge of how we can collaborate, coordinate our actions. The third point are institutions. From where I'm standing right now, I sincerely believe that institutions do really matter. And this is why I might sound a little bit critical about our present situation, but I've seen that personal politics is actually winning against science and empirical studies at this point. So, and because our institutions have been weakened, the problem now is that you have all of this disinformation and personal politics. And lastly, my last point is because you have a weak center of government, the center of gravity is weak. What we have are the likes of Valenzuela, Marikina, Pasig, Manila, who are innovating as they go along, and they have demonstrated their capacity and resiliency to overcome all of these challenges because the center of gravity is not performing. the local government will perform on their own. So I was not totally surprised with that Senator Gatchalian provided as major accomplishments during this pandemic. Surely enough, many of local governments will rise to the occasion. With that, I congratulate Senator Gatchalian and Dr. Gonzalez. I've learned a lot from what you said, and some of the things that you've said actually confirm some of my inferences. Thank you very much.
Maraming salamat, Dr. Lloyd, for pointing out also yung leadership and institutions, no? Sabi nga, institutions matter. So kung yung institutions natin ay weak, what will happen to our system? No? What will happen to our governance? So with that, I'd like to proceed now with some questions. Ang daming nasa chat box natin. Unahin natin yung isang katanungan, no? From Sir Mel. Sir Mel is from National Youth Commission, no? And ang tanong niya is, actually yung idea niya is, huwag din kalimutan yung SK, no? Kasi yung SK is part of local governments as well, no? And ang sabi ko nga kay Sir Mel, yes, isama natin talaga yung SK and bigyan natin sila ng yung platform wherein they can really participate very well, no? Okay, so yung question natin, maybe I'd like to request Ma'am Lily Domingo to throw some questions for our speaker, both for Senator Gatchalian and Dr. J. Gonzalez. Ma'am Lily?
Good morning. It's really a privilege and an honor to participate in an activity like this. I learned so much. I'm very happy to hear that outside of the expected centers, there are bright spots, and Valenzuela is one of them. And I think what I learned most from Senator Win has to do with the very importance of humility in leadership. As people go up the ladder, getting all the powers and the opportunities, there's a tendency to forget to be humble. But he admitted to us that he copied good practices, he discarded what did not work, he revised them, and he's so proud of it. So my question to Senator Win would be, if you are an aspiring leader or you are now faced with so many problems, especially with the pandemic, where do you start to learn? Are there leaders, local leaders, national leaders who have made themselves accessible? And how do you translate such abstract practices in an atmosphere of competition and grabbing the limelight? So that's my question for Senator Gatchalian. I hope he's still here. Wala na ata siya.
Nandito pa.
Okay, dyan. He's always, si Sen attending the entire session like we were with PSPA before, yeah.
Ma'am, napakahirap po yung tanong niyo. It's a very difficult question, especially what we are all experiencing right now. Well, ako you're correct, no, in a sense that leadership is very abstract. No? That's why I always premise my questions. Are leaders born? Are leaders made? Can we train leaders if they go to school, if they attend school in DAP, UP, and CPAG, or all of this local governance institution? Will they be transformed into a good leader, someone who can sincerely, wholeheartedly, committedly lead the country? It's very difficult, no? It's a very difficult question to answer. But personally, I am quite fortunate because I had some experience in management before I joined government. I was working in our family business, managing a lot of businesses, and then so had experience in management. And also I'm quite fortunate that I went to school. So my parents helped me attend college and gain a lot of knowledge. But admittedly, it's a combination of academics and a combination of learning from experience and best practices. That's why discussions like this, wherein you learn from other mayors, you learn from other speakers, and it's very important, no? Because a lot of the things that I practice in leadership and governance really came from best practices and learning from others. I mentioned earlier that nothing can replace the good old visibility and presence. You know, I think the most obvious and the most important demonstration of leadership is being visible and presence. It's no rocket science, no? I mean, this is, you don't need a PhD in Harvard to know that and to practice that. But when people see you, when people can feel your presence in an area by being there, it sends a very different signal to them. It sends a very different message to them that you are committed, you're one with the community, you're willing to listen, you're open, there's no barriers, and you're sympathizing with what our constituents are feeling. So that I learned from experience, visibility and presence. And along the way, you also learn many things. But basically, just to answer your question, ma'am, it's really a combination of a lot of case studies and theoreticals. Listening to Dr. Gonzalez earlier, I took down some notes because those are both from his personal experience and both from his academic knowledge. And if you fuse this together, I think you can develop good leaders and somehow put them on track. No? It's very difficult, ma'am. It's very difficult to say that, oh, itong taong to, because he graduated from Harvard, he's an experienced mayor, hindi magiging corrupt. Yesterday, while listening at the PhilHealth investigation, lahat naman sila magagaling doon. Iba general, iba military man, pero bakit 15 billion po ininakaw? No? So it's very difficult po. You can only have certain guideposts, and I think it's up to us, no, being citizens of this country, to demand accountability and transparency so that they will not veer away from that guidepost.
Can I say something to add to, join the conversation? So I'd like to get back to Dean Lisan's point about the youth, the importance of the youth. Because here in San Francisco, when COVID-19 started, I'm the president of the Filipino Senior Resource Center here. Our executive director is attending right now, Gabby Moraleda. Our biggest problem was our staff are all seniors with comorbidities. And our clients, our Filipino clients who walang mga pamilya dito, nagpapadala lahat sa Pilipinas, wala silang mga pamilya, nag-iisa sa mga tinitira nila. Ang biggest problem namin, sino mag-aalaga sa kanila? Sino magdadala ng pagkain sa bahay nila? Sino magdadala ng gamot sa kanila? The answer came in the youth center. The youth stepped up dito sa San Francisco, especially the Filipino youth. So yung sinabi mo, Dean Lisan, earlier about intergenerational support, that is very, very important. And I saw it here. Kung hindi dahil dun sa youth center at saka yung mga Filipino-American youth, nag-step up para suportahan ang mga lola at lolo nila. Hindi nila talaga lolo't lola yan. Hindi namin mapapatakbo yung center. Hindi namin alam kung anong gagawin namin. So the call to leadership for SKs, during this pandemic, and all the youth, whether you're American or Filipino, is very high. And this is an opportunity for you to step up, to move away from your devices and do some action on the ground. I know your devices can be distracting. And ang ginawa nga namin sa kanila after they've helped out deliver food, pinaturuan namin yung mga lolo't lola para magamit nila yung mga devices ng Zoom. And so we can have bingo continue on Zoom para naman yung mental health nila maasikaso din. So, I just wanted to underscore that, the importance of the bayanihan spirit that lives in our DNA. Hindi ko maaasahan ng ibang lahi gumawa ng ginawa nila. I think it's in our DNA. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. J. O yeah, kahit sa the bayanihan and the balikatan spirit, no, nandiyan palagi sa atin. And at this point, I would like to recognize and call also Attorney Engelbert Corona, the President and CEO, for his comments, message, and his questions. Attorney Engelbert.
Din Lizan, yung nabanggit kanina ni Dr. Rebolida regarding doon sa experiments that the public sector or the government need to do, the learning and the unlearning just in order to respond to a crisis such as this. Meron lang akong isang comment doon because the difference between the private sector and the public sector is that yung threshold for experiments as far as public sector is concerned is very, very short. Unlike sa private sector, when you do innovations and test your responses to certain outside stimulus, controlled mo yung environment mo and you can actually prepare for a possible reaction against doon sa experiments mo. Pero sa public sector kasi there are so many pressures na kasali dyan na you cannot really afford a very drastic experiment because you have to consider yung political backlash nito, you have to consider yung paano mag-react ang constituents mo. So it's really very difficult sa part ng public sector to do some innovations. So siguro ang crucial sa atin ngayon is ano dapat yung mechanisms na dapat pina-practice ng mga tao na nasa government sector to be able to do the innovation but at the same time manage the environment kasi palagay ko it requires some kind of skill to balance the two. And if there is any process sana na alam natin na kaya nating gawin yon, maganda. So yun lamang po. Yun yung question, yun yung reaction ko doon that indeed it's important to innovate but yung threshold natin sa public sector sa innovation is very, very nil, very, very small such that dapat talaga meron tayong institutional process doon na that would allow yung actions natin na acceptable, magkaroon ng legitimacy at the same time that it is effective policy. Yun lang po.
Thank you very much, Attorney Corona. I would like to seek some reactions from Senator Gatchalian and Dr. J. But before that, I would like to include this question also from Dr. Ronald Holmes. No? He said that I am, I just want to make comments from Senator Win, Dr. J, Dr. Malu, and other participants on the notion that this pandemic reveals again the weakness of central government and the differing abilities of LGU. What needs to be done to strengthen central government agencies? Okay. So may we have Senator Win and Dr. J.
Yeah, let Senator Win. Senator, kayo muna. Pag mahirap mag-question, kayo po muna. Ha? Alam nyo, ako'y batang kalye sa Santa Ana so hindi, palagi kaming naghihintay ng senador para saluhin kami.
Ay, actually, mahirap nga yung mga tanong. Dr. Lisan, can you repeat again the question one more time?
Sorry po. The question of Dr. Holmes, yung premise niya, there is that notion that this pandemic reveals again the weakness of central government and the differing abilities of LGU. What needs to be done to strengthen central government agencies? So parang in line din dun sa tanong ni Attorney Caron na ang daming factors to consider wherein you cannot make drastic change now because of you cannot separate politics from administration.
In my view, regarding connecting the pandemic to the question of Dr. Holmes, from a local government standpoint, especially this type of pandemic, local governments look for directions, and they look for guidance from the national government. But if you have a sweeping crisis like this, you really need to mobilize local governments and make it work in unison, make them do the job in unison. So you have a national guidance, a national direction, but you have to cascade it down to little pieces and make sure that you standardize those little pieces so that the local governments will work towards that direction. It's important to standardize and to make sure that they work together and follow that standard, because even though you have national direction, but you will let them do the task on their own, magkakagulo rin on the ground. And I'll give you a very good case in point yung contact tracing, and I've been suggesting this to national government, because our contact tracing is really mano-mano. It's the most manual, laborious activity that you can get. But if you have one virus that can infect 20 members of your family, and the 20 members can affect another 20 people, you need to work fast. You need to work as fast as you can. And in this case, you need to use technology and standardize that technology. Unfortunately, what I am hearing is you get chismosas and chismoso and make them contact tracers dahil kilala nila lahat ng nasa barangay. That sends a very confusing signal. And until now, the direction for contact tracing is more manual. Get more people, lahat kayong mga LGUs, get more people and do contact tracing. But I've seen the quality of contact tracing done by different LGUs. It's very manual, and without automating it using technology and coming up with a standardized process, and even inputting the data, telegraphing the data or transmitting the data from local to national, you need to automate all of this, because even now, ang gagawin nila, lalagay sa Excel, ipaprint sa Excel, i-email, papadala sa email. So there's time lapse, and that's why one of the things that I suggested to improve is automate contact tracing and improve it, and standardize it across all 1,500 LGUs, so that they will work in unison and deliver the output all in a standardized manner. So message from the top, make sure that it's standardized so that it will be executed according to the message.
Yes,
Can
thank you.
I add something? Firstly, I want to echo what the senator said, underscore it. But I want to answer what Attorney Caronan pointed out earlier. And I like the word he used, innovation. As you know, we are part of the Silicon Valley here. We're the epicenter of innovation. Where Facebook, Twitter, many companies, tech companies emerged, right? And one thing I learned from this ecosystem that we have here in the Silicon Valley, sir, is that hindi po kayo makaka-innovate kung surrounded kayo by pessimists. You have to surround yourself with optimists, people who see infinite possibilities happening. Ang mga local government units ho namin dito ay nahahawa dyan sa Silicon Valley culture of optimism. And therefore, we become innovative, with our policies, with our, nakita nyo naman yung kahit na balubaluktot minsan yung mga Tagalog ng mga signage namin, right? I mean, we are trying very hard to, and they're innovative sound bites that appeal to the Filipino, population here. So optimism is very, very critical to innovation, right? And then to Ronnie about leadership. Kaya kami dito sa Amerika, of course, we adopted a federal system. Is because pag na-detect namin that we cannot get the leadership we need on the ground, real time, right? Today and tomorrow and the following day, we say, we're going to do it. Our mayors will do it themselves. And I heard this in the mayor's forum from Mayor Jerry Trinas of Iloilo, and of course CDO Mayor Oka Moreno. When they did not hear enough from the national government, they moved and they acted and they issued executive orders to counteract the real-time situation that they were dealing with. Allah, our mayor in San Francisco. And as we raise money, we don't rely too much, because the national government, they say, why didn't you follow us? Well, we don't get money from you. Only about 4% of our budget comes from you. So you cannot tell us what to do if we don't think it is right. So eventually, hopefully that can be, the example, the leadership that's done when you are independent and when you are optimistic. Back to you, Dean, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. J and Sen Gatchalian. Ang dami mga questions and very interesting po, very engaging yung discussion sa chat box natin. And one comment here from Mary Grace Reyes, I am hoping that the national government will give benefits to the barangay officials and tanods. During the ECQ, the barangay contributed a lot in establishing checkpoints and helped to limit the mobility of the people. However, they did not receive any compensation or benefit from the national and local government. So this is an echo dun sa sinabi ni Senator Gatchalian to give priority also to barangay officials. We have to recognize them. So I'd just like to time check. It's 11:53 and gusto namin sanang i-entertain lahat ng questions, but maybe Dr. J can help me answer some questions na nasa chat box. Same with Sen Win. If you're free lang po, there are so many comments na magaganda and very inspiring, and you inspired our participants right now. Actually, we are live via Facebook and we are viewed by hundreds of participants from different parts of the country. Yung participants natin, SUCs, meron din ako nakita from Galing Pook, from PUP, from Northern Philippines, si Dr. Lamarca nandyan. So ang dami, Mindanao. So, we converge in one platform seamlessly together and co-create knowledge for a better future that cares. So right now, I would like to call on our ICMA president, ICMA chapter president, Professor Mitch Vil Rivera for his message. Prof. Mitch.
Hi, thank you, Dinizan. Good morning to everyone. We just had a very engaging and interesting discussion. But before I begin with my message, I would like to thank my former boss, our keynote speaker, and Valenzuela City's champion in education and governance, Senator Win Gatchalian. Sir, Senator, thank you for always accepting my invitation and ASPAP PSPA invitation. Si Senator Win is already a honorary lifetime member of ASPAP and PSPA. Thank you very much, Senator Win. To our resource person, Dr. J. Gonzalez of Golden Gate University. Through Dr. J, no, nagkaroon kami ng opportunity maging official member, no, at part ng ICMA. To DAP, SDP, and Dean Dr. Lizan Perante Calina, my mentor, one of the prime mover of my exposure, no, sa iba't ibang mga conferences and seminar, local and internationally. And now my faculty advisor in DAP ICMA chapter. To our reactors, Dr. Lloyd Bautista and Dr. Bolida. To my PLV family, I have here with me our ever supporting president, Dr. Nedenia Toralba. To our fellow student chapters in the Philippines, fellow public administrators, members of the academe, public servants, dear students, distinguished guests, good morning. It is with great pride and honor for me and for the Pamantasan ng Luzon ng Valenzuela, as well as for LGU Valenzuela City, to assume the position as President of the International City County Management Association, DAP Student Chapter. My heartfelt thanks goes to the DAP Graduate School, especially to Dean Lizan and to her team for the trust and confidence. For the information of everyone, very young pa yung Pamantasan ng Luzon ng Valenzuela. We've been established in 2002, and we are very proud to say that just recently last week, lumabas na po ang aming SHED institutional recognition, 100% program recognized na po ang PLB na that will pave the way for our entitlement doon sa free higher education. So we'd like to thank everyone, no, na kahit maliit pa lang yung eskwelahan namin, through the help of our big brothers in different universities, both public and private universities. Special mention to DAP, PUP, UPNCPAG, ASPAP, PSPA, na expose, no, ang pamantasan ng lungsod ng Valenzuela as well as the city of Valenzuela sa ganitong klase ng undertaking. So maraming salamat po sa inyo. The establishment of ICMA here in DAP is very timely as we usher towards the new normal brought about by COVID-19 pandemic. Collaboration, or what we in DAP call synergy is always the key. Partnerships with local international organizations like ICMA and other academic institutions will pave way for knowledge co-creation, sharing and benchmarking of best practices, strengthening our networks and linkages, and professional growth and development will benefit us all. We're all in this together. The ICMA, as the world's leading association of professional city and county managers and other employees who serve local governments, will provide valuable learning and practical understanding of the important role that local government play in the development of a sound policy responsive to the public, as well as the promotion of good governance in our respective LGUs. Citing our theme for this launch, responsive public governance requires proactive solution and immediate action on the part of the government to effectively and efficiently address problems of public through sound policymaking. Given the ongoing pandemic, transformative governance is to be understood to have considerable influence on the success of recoveries, both the economic and the social factor during and after the pandemic. It must be noted that in order for our country to move forward and recover, transparency and accountability as foundations of good governance must be upheld at all times. According to the World Bank, the coronavirus pandemic are dealing a severe blow to global economy, and especially poorer countries. Recessions associated with pandemic will bring inequality, unemployment, closure of businesses, and hunger to our people. As expected, the poor and the vulnerable are the hardest hit in this trying time. Amidst this COVID-19 situation, as mentioned by Senator Gatchalian, the IATF has adopted a national government-enabled, local government unit-led, and people-centered response to combat this pandemic. This approach has taken the LGUs to the center stage once again in the fight against COVID-19. Provinces, cities, municipalities, as well as barangay play a vital role in this ongoing battle. Thus, the national government is expected to empower LGUs and provide them with all necessary support they need if we really want to win this war. True to its mandate, LGU will have to bring the government in its program closer to the people. It must be felt by the constituents. We have to involve the public and encourage participation in every aspect of policymaking and governance. They should realize and feel that their government is working for them, taking care of their welfare and always doing the best they can to lessen, if not end, this pandemic. Only with these actions that the trust and confidence to our institutions will be reinstated. Lastly, in order to rebuild and recover, we have to calibrate our systems to be more responsive, inclusive, and data-driven. Now more than ever, what our people need is hope. The government should give its people that hope. With this, I look forward that everyone will join us in the ICMA student chapter here in DAP. Membership is open for all as we continue to partner with everyone to bring positive changes and help our respective LGUs. Gaya ng sinasabi sa DAP, para sa Diyos, para sa bayan, para sa mamamayan, mabuhay ang ICMA, mabuhay ang DAP. Maraming salamat po sa lahat.
Mabuhay, Professor Mitch. And of course, we will open the membership to everyone. No? And just a rundown, no, bago tayo mag-lunch, we'll just call on Ms. Rebecca DeSantis of ICMA before I proceed to Attorney Engelbert Coronan for his closing remark. So now I would like to request Matt to kindly introduce Ms. Rebecca Santis of ICMA.
Thank you, Professor Mitchville Rivera. Thank you also, Dr. Lizani Perante-Calina. I would like to introduce Ms. Rebecca DeSantis. She is she is Program Manager and Career and Equity Advancement of the International City and County Management Association of the USA. And she will give us more details about the registration. Miss Rebecca?
Great. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, very well, Rebecca.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for having me. This has been an incredibly informative and exciting launch. So thank you so much. I'm speaking to you today from Washington, D.C., where I work at the ICMA headquarters. As was mentioned, I manage our student chapter program worldwide, and I am very excited to welcome our new chapters in the Philippines to our program. The goal of the ICMA student chapters is to introduce and integrate students into local government management profession and familiarize them with members, resources, and the ICMA Code of Ethics. As a part of ICMA's next generation initiatives, our chapters exist to establish connections between ICMA, universities, students, and local government professionals. We currently have 110 ICMA student chapters worldwide. ICMA strives to create program content that engages and excites students about the profession of local government management. Through our student chapters, we also hope to attract students who are interested in general public service and administration. We at ICMA look forward to supporting all of the Philippine student chapters in developing their own content, holding meetings, engaging with guest presenters like we've done today, and engage with other chapters. We also hope that students will engage with ICMA by attending our virtual annual conference in September. And my most important point to make here today is to all of you students who are on the call, encouraging you to join the chapter that has been established at your university so that you can take advantage of all of the benefits of being a student member of ICMA. Each of your chapter leaders have the information to help you join ICMA. And through our partnership with DAP as the new hub for all of the chapters in the Philippines, they will work with us at ICMA to make sure that you have the ability to make the most of your time in your chapter. I'm happy to be helpful and to answer questions. If anyone wants to direct questions through CJ to me about chapter membership and getting involved with your chapter. And I hope that everyone will take advantage of that and will work with CJ and I to make sure that that we can give you the most of your ICMA membership. So thank you again, and I really look forward to supporting your chapter, all your chapters in your country, and seeing the success that we'll have with this exciting partnership.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. I see now the enthusiasm from the youth sector and from the young professionals. Now I would like to recognize our president, Attorney Coronan, for his closing remarks.
Yes, good afternoon to each and everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank Honorable Senator Sherwin Gatchalian for taking time to be with us. It is such an honor and privilege on the part of DAP for you to be part of this. And I would like to convey our appreciation for sharing your perspectives. It shows not only the breadth and the depth of your knowledge and experience, but also the obvious discipline and commitment, your obvious discipline and commitment to an evidence-based policy making. We feel assured that as your constituents, we are indeed in a good hands. I would also like to recognize Dr. J. Gonzalez, of course, Dr. Lebolida, and Dr. Bautista. Thank you. This is part of a series that is part of the strategic direction of DAP, which is to expand and institutionalize its knowledge base. Pursuant to these objectives, two programs of action were undertaken, that is the strengthening of partnerships and linkages and the institutionalization of structures and processes that allows us to be at the cutting edge of things. So today's activities actually falls squarely within our strategic direction, and I would like to congratulate Lizanne and the GSPDM and Dr. J. Gonzalez for spearheading and making this initiative possible. I believe that this partnership would be beneficial to both of our organizations, ICMA and DAP, in more ways than one. I am sure that it will serve as a platform that allows the continuous flow of information from credible sources and the co-creation of new knowledge. So once again, I would like to congratulate Dean Lizanne, the GSPDM, for this initiative. Thank you and good afternoon.
Maraming salamat, Attorney Engelbert Caronan. So before we close, meron lang tayong mga announcements na ibibigay ni Matt. So I would like to turn over you to Matt. Matt?
Thank you, Attorney Engelbert. So,
okay, parang nagkakaroon
a short message from one of our actors. Opo.
Okay, I thought I was the one having a problem on the internet connectivity. Is it Matt? Okay, so anyway, this is Dr. Alex's message. No, and I would like to read. Thank you.
Yes, Dean, that is the message of Dr. Brillantes.
Okay, for bringing in ICMA as a partner of DAP and launching the Junior Society of the ICMA. Thanks for sharing the wisdom with us. Congratulations on doing so well in the global arena. Mabuhay ang ICMA, mabuhay ang DAP. So that's from Dr. Alex. Maraming salamat. Okay, so Matt, are you still having a good connection? Okay, anyway, Sige, I think this is the end.
Yes, Dean, I think that's it for today.
Yeah, all right. So before we end, I would like to request everyone to kindly go to their gallery view for our traditional photo shoot. So we are a family here, or it's this is very intimate, no? A close discussion on the development in San Francisco and in the Philippines, no? We are all one in this advocacy. Okay, so who would like to take the call? The count. Okay, sino magpipicture sa atin?
Me.
All
One,
right, Mikey, go ahead.
1, 2, 3. Hold on. Done na po, Dean.
All right, so for 6 pages, 138 participants here inside the Zoom, and then we had hundreds and thousands of participants via FB Live and YouTube. So maraming salamat, maraming salamat, Dr. J, for gracing this occasion and for initiating this activity. Maraming salamat din kay Senator Gatchalian, maraming salamat Professor Mitchell for taking the lead. So now the challenge is nasa iyo na ngayon ang challenge, no? So let's have a very good chapter here at DAP, and also as a mothership nga ang tawag ni Dr. J, no? Good, no? So we'll help our local government and have a greener, sustainable, and regenerative society. And I would like to acknowledge them also pala, our students from Philippine Coast Guard. No? So later on, ay klase kami at 1 o'clock. See you! Bye everyone! Maraming salamat!
Bye.
Bye!
Bye, Dean Lizan.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you
Bye, Ma'am
again.
Lily, Mama Lu. Hi to President Nebi Torralba pala of PLB, Ma'am.